All right, let's get this party started. Today we got part one of our GSD podcast. All right, my friends, we are in for a treat today. I'm extremely stoked for this interview. Today we have two rock stars on the call, husband and wife that both absolutely dominate. I'm going to give you a quick lowdown on both, as both have accomplished so much. So Monica Diaz, she's a mother, a wife, a figure and bikini competitor, nationally acclaimed real estate agent with over $350 million in gross volume sales, is the co-founder of Fabulous Fit Over 40. She specializes in working with men and women on mastering positive mindset and creating a life filled with gratitude. And Jay Campbell, husband, father, internet marketing strategist, accomplished male physique competitor, co-founder of Fabulously Fit Over 40, best-selling author, writes for Ironman Magazine, co-founder of S.O.A.R Seminars, which is an anti-aging company, and more. So, when I think of people that fit the GSD mode model, that choose to get shit done and live an epic life, these two fit it really to a T. So I'm absolutely honored, stoked, and excited to have Jay Campbell and Monica Diaz on the show. Welcome on the show, my friends.
Thank you, Jonathan. Hey, by the way, you forgot something on Jay's bio there, so do you mind if I add it?
No, please do.
Okay, super hot, studly dude. You gotta add that too, because he's hot.
Well, so Jay even sent me some profile pictures for the images for the podcast, but I'm like, dude, I can't even put those on there because he makes me look like crap.
He's making that stuff up. Josh, man, thank you so much for having us on your show today. Monica is totally biased, obviously, but we are honored and humbled, and super thrilled and excited to be here. You obviously are a mogul yourself. And for us just to be on the show is awesome. We're like I said, we're just super stoked to be here.
Yeah, awesome, man, awesome. Well, I got so much to cover, you guys. I got a lot of questions for you because you guys have really, you're really having it all. I mean, and when I mean that, I mean you've got a successful business. You've got young children. You've been successful parents. Obviously you're married and you've got an amazing relationship. You take care of your health. I mean, so often we see, let's say, a uber successful entrepreneur, meaning their business is successful, but they let their health go, or they don't know their kids, or their marriage sucks, right? Like a lot of times you just see these people living in these extremes, and I truly believe you can have it all if you live your life intentionally, and you guys are living proof of that. So I really want to kind of get in deep with what your guys' journeys are, and I want to start with you, Monica. You've accomplished all of this, but I know you didn't start this. So let's kind of go back, kind of rewind the clock a little bit and kind of talk about, I don't know, after high school, after college, like what was the journey that led you into entrepreneurship, that led you to being the success that you are right now?
Ooh, good question. So I would just say initially when I was raised more at the poverty level, and I knew I always wanted to do something that I would not have to struggle. My mom was a single mom. She raised 4 of us. So I didn't want to have to go through the same things that she went through. So I was taught, work hard, work smart. And when I right out of high school, and actually when my dad came back, my mom and dad got back together right when I was in high school. My dad was a real estate appraiser, and he hit me up right as I graduated from high school if I wanted to work for him. And I said, sure, it sounds like a great opportunity, because at the time I was just working, you're right out of high school, you get a retail job, you're like, great. And I was planning on going to college. My dad had told me, look, the only way I'm going to pay for you to go to college is if you study real estate. And I was like, crap, I don't want to go into real estate. Why do I want to go into real estate? They're a bunch of douchebags. And I thought for sure I was never going to go into real estate. So I became an appraiser. I became a certified residential appraiser. Did that for 14 years, had kids. Started having kids in my early 20s. And I just realized how much work was involved in appraising, and I would meet these agents at properties, and some of them weren't the most intelligent, yet they were doing really well financially. So I started to put 2 and 2 together, and I decided it would be better for me to go into sales, and I could probably end up doing better, because my husband at that time, which is now my ex-husband, was not very motivated, not very driven, was very complacent, and so if anything was going to happen, it was going to be because I had to push to get there on my end. So long story short, got into real estate, and I just realized that that was my calling. I wanted to help people. I wanted to be a great salesperson. I want to learn how to. My goal was to learn how to speak to people. So I did anything and everything that I was told to do, and I mean anything from waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning to make sure that I would, be working out, doing what I needed to do, study my scripts, study what I needed to do, work until a certain amount of time, be there for my kids, and then I just kept going at it, and developed momentum, and ended up doing really well in real estate. Unfortunately, I got a divorce. My ex and I were just not right for each other. Had 3 kids in the process, and was about 3 years into being solo that Jay and I met. And at that time, I was getting close to 40, and I was gonna compete in my first bikini competition. Knew nothing. The only thing that I did know was training. I learned how to improve my diet. Didn't know much about posing, and that was right when Jay and I first met. I remember going on stage and him looking at me going like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? You have no idea." So that's where the journey began. Him and I started dating and have been married for about a year now, which is fantastic. He's an absolute go-getter, and with him by my side, it's like we are unstoppable, absolutely unstoppable. So that's just brief. I didn't want to get into it too long. I mean, if you have other questions, I can get into it more detailed. But I think Jay has a great story as well.
Yeah. So, well, and just one, and maybe 2 follow-up questions to that, and then I want to kind of have Jay share his story of how he got into entrepreneurship and all that fun stuff. But first question: were you always into your health? I mean, did you grow up athletic? Because I mean, I'm looking at your picture right now, and dude, like you are in amazing, epic, awesome shape. Like, is that something you've always been into, or did that happen? And, was there like a defining moment in your life that made that happen?
You know what, Josh? I am honestly like the one who is the biggest geek and dork in school. Honestly, I was very uncoordinated, had no clue. I tried out for anything and everything I could try. I was athletic in the sense that I loved to exercise. I loved to play outdoor sports. I was a tomboy. However, anytime I tried out for a sport, I never made one team. Never made cheerleading, never made softball, never made soccer. Everybody cut me. And so when I turned 17, I decided to get into training. And unfortunately, I didn't know proper training techniques, so I just did. I just went to the gym. I would train. I would work out. In my head, as a young woman, I would think, oh, if I'm at the gym for 2 hours and I'm pumping iron, I'm doing this, then I must be doing something good. I'm sweating. So I always attempted to be fit. However, not until probably close to 40 did I really truly realize what it meant to train properly, to eat properly. I had an idea based on what I read in magazines, what I thought was healthy, and I was doing those things, but they weren't the right way, So I attempted, to answer your question, I attempted to be physically fit and to be in the best shape, but I wasn't. And but I was never what you would say, fat. I was decently in shape, but not to the degree that I am now.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, second question, and this is nothing about health. This is actually just something that you had brought up with your ex, and then talking about Jay. So, and this is awesome. This is the first husband and wife podcast I've ever done, so I love this, right? Because I think it's so critical when you have that awesome support system. So your ex was unsupportive, or I don't want to say unsupportive. I think you used the word, but he just wasn't motivated. And Jay is so driven, and together with you guys supporting and helping each other level up, the sky's the limit. Like how important, like you've experienced both. Like how important is a lot of people sometimes will come to me like, oh, what do I got to do to be successful? Like let's start first with what you need to eliminate. Like what behaviors or maybe what people in your life you need to eliminate first that are bringing you down. Like what was that experience like?
Honestly, it was hard. It was challenging because here I was attempting to do everything I could because I did not want my kids to go through what I went through growing up. I had to experience lack. I had to experience not having enough day in and day out growing up. I didn't want that for my kids. So at one point in time when I was married with 2 kids at that time, I was working 3 jobs. My ex was like, oh, if I have a job, I'll work. But if I don't, And so it became a struggle at that time. And this is what I honestly believe is that when you're with somebody, you cannot necessarily change them. I met him when I was 17 years old, and we got married when I was 22. You know, when we got married, I was very insecure. I didn't know who I was. I knew what I wanted more out of life. What that looked like, I had no clue. So as we grew and we matured, we both grew and matured into different people. His goal was to live the life. You know, I don't know. You know, I'm not religious, or I don't want to put anyone down, religious beliefs down, but his whole thing was, I want to do God's plan. But apparently God's plan meant that he was sitting on the couch waiting for God to talk to him and tell him what he needed to do. No idea. So, you know, after a while, when you're going one way and the other spouse is going the other way, it's really hard to meet at some point. And then, you know, the other thing that's a challenge is that when you have a spouse who talks down about the other spouse, and then the kids hear that, you know, you all got to be on the same page. You got to be on the same page, and then that way the kids know, like, look, mom and dad are working together. They're doing the best that they can for us. And if you're not, then you know, okay, look, what's going on here? What's not working? And that goes with your family. I mean, the thing to think about, Josh, is just because somebody's your family doesn't necessarily mean that you have to associate with them. You know, I came from a family that, you know, I thought had my back and, you know, would be there for me day in and day out. And then I realized when everything went, you know, like they say, the shit hits the fan, I realized they weren't there for me. And I had to learn how to detach from them and be my own person, so that I could move forward as opposed to being pushed back. So, you know, you got to look at life and see who's there. And I'm not saying from a selfish standpoint, I'm just saying, like, who's there to build you up and to make things work. And I don't think anybody who's in a relationship should say, oh, it's all my spouse's fault, because sometimes you got to take a look in the mirror and see who you are. And you got to say, okay, who am I being through this process? Is it me? And if you're doing the best that you can and there's still something not clicking, and you're looking at your spouse and your spouse is not cooperating, then, I mean, obviously you're going to have to sit down and take a look at that. I mean, we went through therapy. We went through all these different things that didn't work. And it is what it is, and I'm honestly glad that it went the way it went, because I never would have met Jay.
Yeah. And then what's that now? What's that experience been like? Okay, so now you're with a dude that you guys do align 100% in every aspect of your life, essentially. And maybe there's some that you don't, but I mean, your business, you guys are both driven, you're both into your health. You know, what is that experience? Because, you know, and the reason I'm asking this is, you know, and it's so sad. 97% of people on this planet, they live and die in mediocrity, and they never can cross that bridge into greatness because it's uncomfortable and they're afraid. But if you don't overcome those fears that you had to overcome, you're never going to have greatness. You're always just going to live an average life and cross that bridge. And so I'm not trying to get like too deep, but I just want to give people on this call that maybe in that position, like you got one shot at life. Like, we got to go out there and live life to the fullest and you know, be with those right people. So what's that experience been like now that you've kind of been there with both elements, and now you're with Jay, who, like you said, I mean, the sky's the limit. I mean,
yeah. No, it's absolutely phenomenal. And I'll tell you this, that what I honestly believe is acceptance is the highest form of love. When you're with somebody who truly accepts you for who you are, regardless of your, you know, what you say, your defects or whatever it is, it's amazing, because, you know, Jay and I, we will work together. We will, like, hey, let's do this, and it's exciting because you can plan with one another. See, with my ex, I'd be like, oh my God, it'd be great if we could do this, and he'd be like, well, why do you want to live for the flesh? You shouldn't live for the flesh. You got to live for the spirit world. And I'd be like, who the hell are you? Like, it was just like, you know. And then I would want to train, and he'd be like, oh, you look like a dude. You have a six-pack. That's a dude. I don't want to be with a dude. And I'd be like, okay, look, you know. So you have that dynamic of somebody who's criticizing you and who's putting you down and who doesn't have the drive. But the sad part about it is because they're not happy with themselves, so they're focusing on you. And then you have the other side of the spectrum where it's with Jay and I, where it's like, hey, how can we do this better? How can we build this better? Okay, we're going to tweak our workout. We're going to look even better than we've ever looked before. Okay, let's do this. Let's build this. How are we going to help these people? How are we going to contribute today? It's amazing, because we truly take each day and we're like, okay, today we're going to do this. And Jay is, I'm not kidding you, I love it. He's so type A, so anal. He's like, okay, today, boom, 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 boom. This is what we got to get done. Hey, what's going on with this? Hey, what's going on with that? Hey, boom, 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 boom. And I'm like, okay, I'll get that. Okay, I'll get that. Okay, let's do this. Okay, let's do that. Okay, we got to take the kids here. It's like, for us, and this is what I was telling him, we were both laughing because he said, like, hey, what's going to happen, like, when we get to that point of retirement? I said, dude, we're not going to retire. We're not the kind of people that retire. We're the kind of people that just keep moving and grooving. We're going to figure something else out. We're going to do this. And I love that because life is meant to be lived full throttle. Life is not meant to be sit back and just say, hey, you know what, life is happening, I'm just going to go ahead and flow. Life is like, dude, what's next? Let's move. Let's happen. Let's move and groove. So that's the difference. Acceptance, just creating plans, creating goals, traveling together, experiencing life together, and oh my God, passion. Oh my God, having passion in your life there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
And
Awesome,
okay.
awesome. No, I love it. All right, Jay, dude, your turn, my brother. So, again, dude, I mean, you've got a lot going on. You and I spoke, you and I first kind of met actually through a mutual friend. We got on the phone, we spoke for about an hour, and then we're like, all right, dude, we got to connect, we got to put some content together because, there was just so many similarities, and we just had so, I mean, I thought it was gonna be a 5-minute call, and I think we're on the phone for like an hour and a half. So yeah, dive into a little bit of your story, dude. I know that you've done a lot in the internet marketing space, and let's kind of talk about your personal story. What's led you to where you are now with your entrepreneurship? What's led you to where you are now with your health? Kind of with all aspects.
Sure, man. Well, first off, let me just say I think that's the longest I've ever gone without talking.
I'm proud of you, babe. But he does have a great voice, so I like to listen. Sorry.
Monica was incredibly eloquent, and I thought you eloquent and elegant, and I thought you asked some really awesome questions, and I thought what she said really resonated with me. I'm sure it'll resonate with your listeners and watchers and stuff. But so I'm not going to spend a lot of time about me. I think that my story is probably too crazy. Monica knows my story, but it's so crazy. It would take too long, and I would rather talk about other cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, my story is truly amazing. I mean, I've had people that are like major Hollywood people tell me that that I should write the screenplay of my life, and that it would be a $200-300 million movie. I mean, it's honestly, dude, it's like what's happened to me probably in the last like 10 or 12 years is like I'm forever grateful for it because it's been just epic. I mean, I've experienced like the absolute highest high to the top of Mount Everest, Mount Fuji. In the clouds, and I've also been literally at the bottom of the ocean wondering whether I was going to be alive in an hour, so it's like, it's just been an epic ride, and, I definitely would say that, like Monica was saying, the experience of constantly, pushing onward and pushing forward, no matter how negative your current, scenario or your current situation is really the key to life because, and this, and, you can read every self-help book, and, I love James Altucher, and I read James Altucher all the time. In fact, he just posted a blog today that's called Time to Quit, and it's making the rounds right now. And honestly, I've read everything that the guy's ever written. It may be his best work yet. The guy is literally amazing. But it doesn't matter what happens to you in your life. Every guy who's successful, from Steve Jobs to Bill Gates to anybody, I mean, you literally fail exponentially more than you ever succeed. So, to understand that, and this goes back to your point, which also resonated with me, that is that most people are fearful. They live their life in fear. They live their life in complacency. Like you were saying, like mediocrity is a great word, but it just, most people just do not have the ability to reach out and to try something. I had a friend of mine that I was either 18 or 19. It was right when I went off to school, and he was a bodybuilder. He was actually the first guy that ever taught me to get into weights. When I was just a skinny, I was always an athlete growing up as a kid. I was a basketball player. I was actually a very, very high-level basketball player. I played in college at Division II level, and then I played overseas I had a cup of coffee overseas. But I was always a real competitive athlete, but I had a skinny body. I was one of those skinny, long, lean, not to get into esoteric muscle fiber typing, but I was just one of those guys that had a lot of endurance muscle fibers. And, the physique that I now have today is just through hard work and really learning the science of exercise training. But this guy literally used to say to me, Josh, when I was 17 or 18 years old, we would be in the gym, and I randomly met him in the gym where I went to college in South Georgia, and we became really good friends. His name was Jarrett Elliott, and he's still out there, and we don't connect anymore, but if he ever somehow gets to hear this, I want him to know this, but because I owe a lot of who I am today to him. But he would say to me when we were training, he would say, let's go, Campbell, push it, push it, push it. And then his famous saying to me was, he who hesitates is lost. So if you think about that statement and how powerful and how compelling it really is and engaging, because it's really the truth about life. If you do not move through and forward, no matter what your obstacle, no matter what your odds, you're never going to go anywhere. And so it's just like, that guy, he was just a country bumpkin, very bright, but a country bumpkin to me at that point in time in my life. But I mean, I literally have, I think, seemingly, empowered myself and modeled my entire life off of that entire little, adage. And again, it's he who hesitates is lost. Because if you don't push forward, no matter what's going on, no matter how, what the obstacles are in front of you right now, you'll never achieve anything. And whether that's just a better life for yourself and, a higher income stream and better able to, provide for your kids and your wife, or if it's, you're a mogul, you're a mover and shaker, you're a Josh, and you're somebody who, wants to build businesses and provide hopes and dreams for hundreds of people who work for you. You know what I'm saying? So it really doesn't matter, but that's how you have to live your life. You have to live your life, the whole GSD mode, just get shit done. You have to continue to push forward. And so to kind of segue, back to me and Monica, without going into my story, you're right. I was a digital marketing dork. I worked as a wage slave. I like to call myself a wage slave for 20 years. I mean, literally, I was always working for a company. I rose to pretty high levels. I worked at Kelley Blue Book. I was one of like 4 guys that literally built or architected their dealer local marketing program from nothing from zero to literally, I think, like $15 to $20 million in recurring revenue monthly in as little as 3 or 4 years. So, as a wage slave, I was a guy making, a lot of money, not 7 figures, but, real close. And, as an employee, when you're not an entrepreneur, when you make that kind of money, that's like crazy money. Like you're making more than the president, not counting bonus and stuff like that. So it was one of those situations where I really understood my role, because as you start making a lot of money as a wage slave, not being an entrepreneur, you start to see that what ends up happening is that all the little minions in the company, especially on the financial side, start to try to get rid of you. So, I learned, probably I was about 35 or 36. I think they let me go when I was 38. I think I was about to turn 39. I was 38 when they let me go. But it was just a salary move. They're like, oh, Jay Campbell makes X. You're out. It doesn't matter the relationships, the business that you built. We can take 2 or 3 people and pay them a third of what you're getting made, and it'll work out. And Josh, from being a sales guy, as does Monica, that it never works that way. Bean counters, financial people, CFOs, they always look at stuff and they say, oh, well, if so-and-so makes so-and-so and we take 2 or 3 people and pay them the same, that it's going to be the same way. But it never works that way, because everything is based on relationships. But financial people don't have that understanding, because they don't build relationships. But anyway, I think that was the point in my life. I rose as high as I could in the corporate world. From an income standpoint, I was never a president of a company or a chief executive officer, but that's where I was headed. If I stayed as what I call a wage slave, that's where I was going. But I realized that now, after being in the corporate workforce for 20 years, or not even 20, but right under 20 years, I got to become an entrepreneur. So I moved back. I was living in Las Vegas. When I left Kelley Blue Book, when they let me go, I took another job, and I moved to Vegas with my ex-wife and my 2 children. My daughter was literally just born, and my other one was 2 years old, for another job. And I got laid off with that job in literally 6 months, because the company got bought out. This is back in 2010. So the economy was still in a very tumultuous time. But in a very short period of time, I went from being laid off of 2 jobs after being with one company for like 9 years. You know what I mean? So that is what really, impressed upon me that, like, okay, I got to stop doing this shit. I can't keep working for myself. Working for other people. Fuck that. I gotta figure out what I want to do. I have a really bright mind, have a lot of energy, but I gotta overcome this captive mindset of like being a wage slave. And as you said earlier, again, I go back to what you were saying, Josh, that most people live in fear. Most people aren't entrepreneurs because they're fearful, right? They want that guaranteed weekly or every other weekly income, that check that comes in that makes them feel better about themselves, that allows them to pay their bills, right? So they live their life about how much money they make, and they never think, oh, wow, if I'm an entrepreneur and I can take all my ideas and I can actually change everything for myself, that, income is unlimited. So no one thinks that way. So long story short, I moved back from Vegas. I went through a horrible divorce, similar to Monica. My ex-wife actually kidnapped my children. She moved back across the country, not even to go into the details of that, but I was without my kids. I was living in a big palatial house in Red Rock Country Club in Las Vegas. I lost that too. I literally ended up moving back to Las Vegas. Oh, and by the way, I was charged with I went to jail. So I was charged with two high-level misdemeanors. I forget what they're called, like third-degree misdemeanors, and I was also charged with a felony. All the charges that I went to jail for were over my ex and her boyfriend setting me up. They were all completely bogus, but I still had to go to jail. It's domestic violence stuff, and once you're hit with that, it's kind of like a scarlet letter. So I had to deal with that. So I had to literally leave Vegas, come to California because I had a record and I was dealing with all that stuff, and I had to get all those charges expunged off my record. I took a job at a car dealership with one of my really best friends in the whole world, who's actually he's like 20% owner of Keys Lexus in Van Nuys, which is the second largest Lexus dealer. So, going to a car dealership, they don't care about my background. They weren't going to do any records checks. So I went there. I started working there. I was a digital marketing director for the dealership, and then I helped do some consulting for some of their other stores. And Monica reached out to me on Match.com. This is back in August of 2012. And we started dating. Like she said, she saw that I had some pictures that, I had done some like physique competitions in like the previous 2 or 3 years. And so she was like, oh, this guy maybe can help me with like, critiquing my diet and my health and nutrition, and maybe even helping me with my competition stuff. And, not knowing me, again, just a profile on Match.com. And she didn't even have a picture of herself, bro. I didn't even know what she looked like. She had a picture on her Match.com profile of her in a long jacket. And it was like a turtleneck shirt.
Too many weirdos. That's why.
Dude, she was literally wearing an outfit like it was a subway picture from New York City, and then she sent me the email. Don't let her lie. She sent me the email.
I did.
And
I have no problem being the aggressor.
Typical Monica, very aggressive, was like saying all these things to me, and dude. You gotta understand, Josh, I'm in a bad place in my life and in my head at that moment in time. I literally, as Monica can tell you, I was living in a 410 square foot box in Sherman Oaks, California, working at that dealership. Kids have been kidnapped from me. I have no communication with them. I'm still sending her a huge check every month. I mean, I'm like broke. I'm strapped. My life is like living hell. And I have this woman reach out to me and start saying all these things to me, and I'm like, who the F are you? But I liked it. It worked.
Let's face it though, I wasn't the only woman hitting you up. You had a lot of women, a lot of hoes hitting you up.
That was a phase in my life where I was like literally like it was 10 months later from being put in jail, divorced, have all this negative shit going for me, felony charges, misdemeanor charges, like all the stuff I gotta beat. So yeah, I was in a really down space in my life, but long story short, she sends it to me on Saturday, and I agree to meet her, and we met at a cafe in Pasadena. I was living in Sherman Oaks, and she was living technically where her and I live together now in San Dimas. So it was literally like 40 miles apart, which, as you know, in the suburban sprawl of Southern California, it might as well be fucking three states, right? I mean, it's like in traffic, it's like a 3-hour drive. So realistically, we met the following day, and as she could tell you, Josh, I sat down with her, and again, I was so anti-woman and so anti-relationship and so anti-thinking that anything would come out of it that I just sat down at this restaurant in my flip-flops, put my legs up on the thing, and just proceeded to just unload 30 minutes of verbal diarrhea about my life and like who I am and like all the baggage I have and all my emotional nonsense. And bro, I mean honestly, bro, like I literally thought that she would just get up and be like, okay, you can pay for this and just bounce. I mean, that was my intention. I was like, who are you? And again, I was messed up. And she ended up just listening to me and very thoughtful and listened to everything I had to say. And I was just I was literally baffled, completely blown away that she didn't get up and leave. And then, she was like, well, okay, wow. She's like, well, that's a pretty interesting story. And I was just blown away. And, to make a long story short, her and I proceeded to like walk on Colorado Boulevard in Old Town Pasadena for like the next hour and a half or 2 hours. And, I think we kissed and held hands and just, dude, honestly, like it was like, and we talk about this all the time, but it was literally like we had been past lovers or past life lovers. Like we had this like intimate bond that we had already established, somewhere else, some other realm, sometime or something, and it just like we felt like together. It was the most bizarre thing. But because I was so distant still, and I was so not ready for a relationship, and I was so destabilized because my daughters are literally in Florida. I have no communication with them. I'm sending money to this woman, my ex who at the time she was actually my ex at that time, but we had no communication. And I still, even though Monica tried so hard, because we dated, on and off, for over the distance for like the next 2.5 months, she was so amazing, but I still kept her at bay. I was like, I'm not ready. I can't have a relationship. I'm a mess, blah, blah, blah. And through all of it, she just kept pushing me and kept saying, like, look, I know who you are. I know the real Jay Campbell. You're an amazing man. She just kept building me up through all of it. And, literally, eventually, she got me to the point where she was just like, look, everything that you do from a digital marketing standpoint that you're doing for that dealership and that dealership group, you could do for me, and you can become the entrepreneur that you've always wanted to become, and you and I can build this amazing business and blah, 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 do all these things. And, here I stand, talking to you on this phone call now, which is literally not even 3 years later, but, about 2.5 years later. And the things that we have accomplished in those 2.5 years, bro, there's no fucking way, excuse my language, that if I went back to that moment in time and I laid out the things that we have accomplished, I could never have dreamed it, bro. Like, there's no way. It's absolutely amazing. So, it's going back to the whole stuff of like, the power of two people. It's not easy, when you're married, when your wife is also your business partner. And not only is she my business partner, but she's my training partner, and she's obviously the surrogate mother. She's not a surrogate mother. She is the mother to my daughters. And that's, part of the story I didn't even say. It's like, through all of that, Monica would constantly reaffirm to me that we were going to have the girls, that I was going to have full custody of my girls, and that they would be living with us within a year. And I would be like, you're fucking nuts. You're like one of those, like, everything's going to be great, you fart unicorns, you're just Mrs. Positivity all the time, no matter what.
Rainbows, dude.
Fart rainbows and unicorns and all that stuff.
I believe in unicorns, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was just like, but here I am, Josh, on the phone with you now, and everything that Monica said was going to happen has come to fruition. I have both of my daughters. They live with us full time. Not only that, Monica built a relationship with my ex where now we're completely amicable, bro. Like, I literally couldn't even I despised her for what she did to me, and now I'm like, we're good. She's actually moved back from Florida. She's in Vegas herself. She's trying to be a somewhat responsible mom. She's being, she has a good job, and she's, helping her whenever she can with her daughters. She comes here, we send them there. So anyway, everything that has happened in the last 2.5 years is truly a miracle. And I think if there's any message that should resonate with your callers and people that watch your show, is that it doesn't matter how far you fall, nor does it matter really how high you rise, as long as you have the ability to continue to push forward when all hope seems lost. That to me is like, everything that has happened with me and Monica. And honestly, we're just blessed. That's all I can tell you, man. It just seems like every day something new, comes to us, or we have an opportunity to do something else. What both her and I have just done in like the last 9 months is amazing, and it's like I don't ever stop to sit back and think about it. I just keep going. I wish I had that ability. Monica helps me with that sometimes, like to really sit back and enjoy the moment. But I struggle with that because I'm just a constant, like she said, just go, constant achiever. I think my dad as a child, and I didn't really get into my family story, but my dad was one of those dads that was a real disciplinarian, a real, go-getter himself. And he pushed his sons, especially, that it was one of those stories where, like, you can't rest on your laurels. You can't sit down. You can't ever expect, somebody's, this is what he would say to me. He would be like, if I was successful as an athlete and I achieved something, he would be like, you know what, son, you can't rest. Right now there's somebody out there outworking you. You know what I mean? So it's like I have that browbeaten into me, and I feel like now it's like it pushes me and drives me to be the person I am today. But I think it also it's difficult for me because I struggle to enjoy the moment. I'm one of those guys that really can't stop and smell the coffee.
Yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, man, a lot of drivers are that way. And you know what your dad talked about, one of my favorite quotes, dude, that what you're talking about, just remind me of this quote. It's success is never owned, it's rented, and the rent is due every single day. Thank you for listening. Do not forget to follow me on Facebook, Joshua Smith GSD, on Twitter @Joshua Smith GSD, Instagram Joshua Smith GSD. Make sure to also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Type in Joshua Smith, and I'm the good-looking cat at the top. If you haven't already, go to www.joshuasmithgsd.com and subscribe to our email list. You'll get these interviews sent to you via email, along with my blog, videos, updates, and all that other fun shit. As always, make sure you're taking action. Take all this golden information that you're getting delivered here and make sure you're applying it. Information without implementation is the start of delusion. So implement. Take massive levels of action, get your hustle on, get into GSD mode, and go dominate. Peace out, guys, and see you next time.